Welcome back, deep divers. We're going undercover today.
Yeah, undercover.
Into the world of private investigation.
That's right.
But not the kind you see in the movies.
Not even close.
We're shining a light on a phenomenon called surveillance fatigue.
And, oh, it's real.
It's more than just needing a good night's sleep.
Way more.
Hey, before we continue, remember to subscribe to stay informed.
Don't miss out.
Our source material today is a really interesting article.
Really fascinating.
It's from Eldorado Insurance.
That's right.
It's called Surveillance Fatigue: How to Prevent Burnout in the High-Stress World of Private Investigation.
Catchy title, right?
So in this deep dive, we're going to uncover what prolonged surveillance really does to a person.
It's not pretty.
We're talking long hours,
Cramped conditions.
high stakes,
All of that.
and we'll explore the surprising ways this work impacts investigators
Both physically
and mentally.
It's all connected.
Plus, we'll dig into some practical strategies for preventing burnout,
That's key.
and even talk about how insurance plays a role in all this.
You might be surprised.
Okay, so let's paint a picture for our listeners.
Okay.
Imagine you're a PI.
Got it.
You've got this assignment to tail a suspect.
Classic PI work, right?
What does that actually look like? Hour after hour.
Well, you're probably spending a lot of time in your car.
Oh, I bet.
You're trying to blend in, be a chameleon.
Right.
But at the same time, you have to be super focused on your target.
Every little detail matters.
Every move, every interaction.
They could be evidence.
Exactly.
And you're on high alert constantly.
Senses on overdrive.
I bet that takes a toll.
Oh, it does.
Not to mention, I can't imagine it's the most comfortable work environment.
Not at all.
Yeah, I'm picturing like cramped quarters.
Yeah.
Maybe bad weather.
Definitely.
And just the sheer boredom of waiting for something to happen.
The monotony can be brutal.
So what does that do to the body? Physically?
Well, you get back pain,
Makes sense
stiff joints.
from sitting all that time.
Yeah.
Even repetitive strain injuries.
It's all that trying to stay inconspicuous.
It's like holding a yoga pose for hours,
Yeah.
but way more stressful.
Exactly. And all that physical discomfort starts to mess with your mind, too.
I bet.
It takes so much mental endurance to stay focused, and you never know when something important is going to happen.
Right, so you're always on edge.
Always.
It's like a mental marathon that can turn into a sprint at any moment.
It's a good way to put it.
And then on top of all that, you've got the emotional weight of the cases themselves.
Yeah, that's a whole other layer.
The article really highlights this.
It does.
Private investigators often deal with some pretty heavy stuff.
Definitely.
Infidelity, fraud.
Even criminal investigations.
So you're not just watching, you're absorbing all that intensity,
And it stays with you.
even after you clock out.
Absolutely.
And that's where the risk of burnout really kicks in.
Big time.
It's not just feeling tired.
It's way more than that.
It's this complete emotional, physical, and mental exhaustion.
All from prolonged or excessive stress.
This is a real condition,
Oh, yeah.
and it has serious consequences,
Not just for the investigator.
but for their work, too.
Yeah, absolutely.
The article mentions some research on this
It does.
from Pursuit Magazine and the Diligentia Group,
Both great sources.
and they emphasize how physically demanding this work is.
They really do.
They talk about chronic back pain
Which we've touched on.
and stiff joints,
From all that sitting.
but those are just the tip of the iceberg, right?
Yeah, just the beginning.
And as we said, when you're in pain, it's harder to focus,
Much harder.
which could mean messing up the whole investigation.
Potentially.
So it's like this vicious cycle.
It is.
Physical pain leads to mental strain,
Which makes the pain worse.
and on it goes.
Exactly.
The Diligentia Group makes this really interesting comparison
Oh, yeah.
to athletes.
Huh. Interesting.
They say both PIs and athletes need endurance,
Right. Makes sense.
and they need to be able to perform at their peak. But if they don't recover properly,
That's the key.
their mental and physical health suffers.
It's true for both groups.
So you can't just power through it all the time.
You can't.
Rest is just as important as being on high alert.
Couldn't agree more.
And we can't forget about that emotional burden.
No, we can't.
It can be just as heavy as the physical stuff.
Absolutely.
Think about it.
Okay.
You're uncovering infidelity
Tough stuff.
or investigating a crime.
Emotionally draining.
That kind of experience doesn't just disappear when your shift ends.
It lingers.
It's got to seep into your thoughts, your feelings.
It does.
What do you think, listeners?
Yeah, what about you guys?
Have you ever dealt with something similar? Let us know in the comments.
We'd love to hear from you.
And the article takes this even further.
It does.
They cite research from the NCBI.
The National Center for Biotechnology Information.
That's the one.
Okay.
And they found that chronic stress, the kind that leads to burnout, it can actually contribute to some serious health issues.
Like what?
Things like depression and anxiety,
Wow.
and even impaired decision-making,
That's scary.
especially in this profession.
Why?
Because one bad decision could derail a whole case.
Oh, that's right.
The stakes are super high,
They are.
and when your mental and emotional health are suffering,
Your judgment goes out the window.
your reactions, everything is affected.
It's a recipe for disaster.
So, recognizing those signs of burnout early on,
Super important.
that's absolutely vital.
It is.
So let's talk about those warning signs.
Okay, let's do it.
What should private investigators and really anyone in a high-stress job be on the lookout for?
Well, the article breaks it down nicely.
How so?
3 categories: physical, emotional, and behavioral.
Okay, let's start with the physical ones.
Sounds good.
What are the red flags there?
Well, chronic fatigue is a big one,
I bet, after all those long hours.
especially sitting in a car for surveillance.
Makes sense.
You might also have musculoskeletal pain.
Like in your back and neck.
Exactly, from those awkward positions.
Sounds like a recipe for tension headaches.
Oh, for sure.
And probably trouble sleeping, too.
You got it. Sleep disruption is another common symptom.
All those irregular hours.
Messing with your natural sleep patterns.
And we all know what happens when we don't get enough sleep.
Tell me about it.
You're drowsy during the day.
Can't focus.
And let's be honest, you're probably a little grumpier, too.
Yeah, shorter fuse for sure.
It affects your work.
And your interpersonal life.
It's a domino effect.
It is.
Over time, all that physical burnout weakens your immune system.
Makes you more susceptible to getting sick.
So you're more likely to get stress-induced illnesses,
Like hypertension.
frequent headaches.
Even just the common cold.
So it all starts with those physical symptoms.
Often, yeah.
But what about the emotional signs?
Those are just as important.
What should we be paying attention to there?
Well, anxiety is common.
I can see that.
And irritability.
Especially under constant pressure.
Exactly.
And I bet you feel emotionally exhausted too.
Oh, absolutely.
Like you've just run out of steam.
Completely drained.
Especially after those tough cases.
It's like your emotional reserves are totally empty.
And when that happens,
What?
it's easy to lose motivation,
Yeah,
to feel worried all the time.
for sure.
And you struggle to find the energy for anything.
Even simple things.
And burnout can even lead to emotional detachment.
It can.
You start to feel numb
Like you're disconnected
from your work.
from the people around you.
It's isolating.
And that isolation makes the burnout worse.
It's another vicious cycle.
It is.
So we've covered physical and emotional signs.
Right.
What about behavior? How does burnout show up there?
Well, procrastination is a big one.
Just put things off.
You feel overwhelmed by even simple tasks.
It's like being paralyzed by your to-do list,
Exactly.
even if it's stuff you normally enjoy.
Yep,
And I bet that leads to more mistakes
it does.
because you're not as focused.
You're not as sharp as usual.
You might even start avoiding important responsibilities altogether.
It happens.
And the article mentions something pretty scary.
What's that?
It says, in the more advanced stages of burnout,
Okay.
you might even start making ethical lapses,
Oh, no.
like cutting corners or making rash decisions.
That's dangerous.
Because when you're burnt out, your judgment gets cloudy.
You're not thinking clearly,
So you're more likely to make impulsive choices,
which can have serious consequences.
especially in this line of work.
Absolutely.
This is a high-stakes profession.
It is.
And those lapses in judgment,
They can really damage your reputation
not to mention your credibility.
and potentially harm your clients.
Exactly. And all of these behavioral changes contribute to something else,
What's that?
a decline in job satisfaction.
You start to hate your job.
You feel ineffective,
Disillusion.
trapped in this cycle of negativity.
It's a recipe for career disaster.
And sadly, it happens more often than people realize.
It does.
The article actually has this really interesting case study
Oh, yeah.
from Neosh
Okay.
about an investigator in the mining industry
Interesting.
who experienced burnout
It can happen anywhere.
in his work environment.
Tell me about it.
It sounds a lot like what private investigators face.
How so?
Long hours,
Okay.
constant travel, high-pressure
It
investigations,
sounds familiar.
and his symptoms.
What were they?
They mirrored the 3 dimensions of burnout.
Which are?
They're outlined in the Maslach Burnout Inventory.
Okay.
Emotional exhaustion,
Right.
depersonalization, and reduced personal accomplishment.
Got it.
Can you break those down a bit further?
Sure.
What does each one actually mean?
Well, emotional exhaustion is that feeling of being totally drained.
Like you have nothing left to give.
Exactly.
And depersonalization.
That's characterized by cynicism
Okay.
and detachment.
From your work and the people you interact with.
That's right.
and reduced personal accomplishment.
That's that feeling of incompetence.
Like you're just not good at your job anymore.
No matter how hard you try.
So in this case study, the investigator was dealing with all three.
All three dimensions of burnout.
Yeah.
That's rough.
He was chronically fatigued.
Okay.
He felt emotionally detached from his work. And he started making a lot of mistakes in his reports.
His performance suffered.
Big time. He actually had to take time off work to recover.
It can get that bad.
It's a reminder that burnout can happen to anyone,
It can.
no matter how dedicated or experienced you are.
It doesn't discriminate.
And it really underscores the need for proactive measures
Absolutely.
to prevent burnout in demanding professions like this.
Prevention is key.
So let's shift gears.
Okay.
Talk solutions.
Sounds good.
What can private investigators do to prevent burnout before it takes hold?
Well, the article offers some really practical advice.
Like what?
They focus on 4 key areas:
Okay, let's hear them.
time management,
Makes sense.
physical health, mental support, and using technology and teamwork to your advantage.
Okay, let's start with time management.
Sounds good.
What are some time management strategies that can help prevent burnout?
Well, one of the most important things is setting realistic work hours.
Easier said than done, right?
It can be.
Especially when you're passionate about your work.
And you want to help your clients.
It's easy to get caught up in the demands of the job,
It is.
but you have to establish a balanced schedule.
You have to.
Otherwise, you're going to overwork yourself.
And that's a recipe for burnout.
So learning to say no,
Even to clients.
that's part of preventing burnout.
It is.
And in the long run, it's better for you and your clients.
It is.
Because, like they say, you can't pour from an empty cup.
Exactly.
And even during those long stakeouts,
Right.
you got to take regular breaks.
Even just for a few minutes.
You got to stretch.
To walk around.
Those short breaks can make a huge difference.
In terms of
Your focus and energy level.
It's like hitting the reset button for your brain. Exactly.
What about delegating tasks?
That's a great idea.
Is that something PIs should consider?
Definitely.
Don't be afraid to share responsibilities.
With colleagues.
Yeah, to lighten the load.
And to prevent burnout.
2 heads are better than 1, right?
Often.
Plus, it helps with that feeling of isolation.
Which we know can contribute to burnout.
So it's not just about managing your own time.
It's also about utilizing your resources.
And your support system.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we've got time management.
Check.
Now let's move on to physical health.
Okay.
This is crucial for preventing burnout.
It is.
So what are some tips for PIs to stay physically healthy?
Especially given all that sitting they do.
Yeah, those long stakeouts.
Well, exercise is key.
It's no surprise there.
It's so good for managing stress and boosting your mood.
And even during surveillance.
Try to get some movement in.
Even if it's just simple stretches.
Or light cardio.
I know it's a challenge.
It is.
But even small movements can help. And of course, a healthy diet is super important.
Absolutely.
Choose nutritious snacks and meals.
And try to avoid fast food.
And stay hydrated.
All day long.
To keep your energy up.
It's like fueling your body for a marathon.
Because in a lot of ways,
What?
this job is a mental and physical endurance test.
That's a great way to put it.
And of course, we can't forget about sleep.
No, we can't.
I know the hours can be crazy,
It can.
but try to establish a consistent sleep routine
As much as possible.
and make sure you're getting enough rest.
To recharge.
Okay, so we've covered time management and physical health.
Right.
What about mental health support?
Okay.
What are some strategies for staying mentally strong?
In such a high-pressure profession.
Work-life balance is key.
It is.
You need to carve out time for yourself,
Outside of work,
to relax,
pursue hobbies.
spend time with loved ones,
It's all about creating boundaries.
so your work life doesn't take over your whole life.
Exactly.
And never hesitate to seek professional help.
If you need it,
If you're feeling overwhelmed,
or struggling to cope,
therapy or counseling.
can be incredibly helpful.
It's important to break the stigma around mental health issues.
It is.
It's okay to not be okay.
Absolutely.
And seeking help is a sign of strength.
Weakness.
Now, before we move on,
Okay.
I want to remind everyone to subscribe to the channel,
If you're enjoying this deep dive,
into the world of private investigation.
the world beyond those trench totes and magnifying glasses.
We'll be right back after a quick break.
And we're back, deep divers.
Back in the game,
Still undercover.
in the world of private investigation.
Peeling back the layers of surveillance fatigue.
In part 1, we really got into the nitty-gritty
We did.
of the physical and emotional toll this work takes.
All those hidden costs.
And we uncovered those early warning signs of burnout.
The ones that can sneak up on even the most experienced PI.
Yeah, and remembering those signs.
That's key.
That's like spotting a suspect tailing you.
Oh, good analogy.
The sooner you act, you can stay one step ahead.
Exactly.
So being vigilant
And proactive.
about your well-being in this profession.
It's so important.
And our guide for this deep dive.
That El Dorado Insurance article,
All right.
it really emphasizes a multi-pronged approach to preventing burnout.
So it's not just one magic solution.
Not at all.
It's about building a whole safety net
Of healthy habits.
and strategies.
Woven into your everyday life.
So let's untangle this web.
Okay, let's do it.
Where do we even begin?
Well, I think it starts with self-awareness.
Okay.
You have to become a keen observer of yourself.
Of your own thoughts and feelings.
Yeah. And even your physical sensations.
Notice those little cues that tell you stress is building up.
Like those red flags we talked about earlier.
The fatigue,
The irritability.
difficulty concentrating.
That feeling of being emotionally drained.
Yeah, those are like whispers.
Before the burnout shout.
Pay attention to those whispers.
Don't ignore them.
They're your body and mind's way of saying, hey, we need a break. So once you're tuned in to those signals,
What's next?
what do you do?
It's time to play detective on your own stress.
Oh, I like that.
Figure out what situations or tasks consistently push your buttons.
What are your personal burnout triggers?
Yeah, what sets you off?
So for example, if long surveillance assignments
Right.
always leave you feeling completely wiped out,
Yeah.
maybe you need to rethink your approach to those kinds of cases.
Maybe break them down into smaller chunks.
Or bring in a colleague to help.
Share the workload.
Is there a way to make the surveillance environment more comfortable?
Less physically taxing.
It's about finding those little adjustments
That can make a big difference.
in your well-being.
Exactly.
So you've identified your stress triggers.
Okay.
Now what?
Now you need a toolbox of coping mechanisms.
I get it.
What strategies can you use to handle those high-pressure situations?
So for someone who hates those long stakeouts,
Right.
maybe their coping mechanism is taking short breaks.
Just
Move around.
Yeah.
Maybe use noise-canceling headphones.
To minimize distractions.
Create a sense of calm.
Exactly. It's about finding what works for you
Personalizing those strategies.
and making them part of your routine.
And of course, self-care is a huge part of this.
It's mission critical.
It's not a luxury in this profession.
Not at all.
And it doesn't have to be these grand gestures.
Or elaborate rituals.
It's often the simple things that matter most.
Like taking a few minutes each day to meditate.
Okay.
Or do some deep breathing exercises.
Okay.
Or listen to music that soothes your soul.
Create little pockets of peace
Mini vacations for your mind.
to de-stress and recharge.
Yeah, exactly.
And don't forget about fun.
Fun.
Make time for things you enjoy.
Oh, right.
Spending time with loved ones.
Yeah.
Pursuing hobbies.
Okay.
Getting out in nature.
Those are the things that remind you there's more to life than work.
Then case files and surveillance vans.
They replenish your emotional reserves
So you can face those tough cases with renewed energy.
and a fresh perspective.
Now, another crucial piece of burnout prevention.
What's that?
Setting boundaries
Ah, yes, boundary.
between work life and personal life,
Those lines in the sand.
which are so easy to blur.
Especially in this profession.
When your work demands your attention all the time,
It's true.
those boundaries are essential
They are.
for protecting your mental and emotional well-being.
So you have the energy and focus.
To do your best when you're on the job.
That's the key.
So how do you actually set those boundaries?
Well, you start by setting limits on your work hours
Okay,
when you're off the clock.
you're off.
No checking emails.
No answering work calls.
And try not to let your mind dwell on those ongoing cases.
It's about giving yourself permission to detach
To recharge.
so you can come back to work feeling refreshed.
Not resentful.
Exactly.
And the article also talks about asking for help.
When you need it.
Don't try to be a lone wolf.
There's strength in recognizing when you need support.
Absolutely.
So reach out to your colleagues.
Your friends, a mental health professional,
If you're feeling overwhelmed,
or like you're drowning in stress.
it's okay to not be okay.
It is.
Asking for help is not a weakness.
It's a sign of intelligence.
And remember, you're not alone in this,
Burnout is common.
especially in high-stress jobs like this one.
There's no shame in reaching out
And there's so many resources available.
to help you through those tough times.
And beyond individual strategies,
What else is there?
the article also highlights the importance of organizational support
Interesting.
in preventing burnout.
So it's not just a personal struggle.
It's an organizational one, too.
That's a good point.
So what can private investigation agencies do?
To create a work environment that supports their investigators.
Well, fostering open communication is a good start.
So employees feel comfortable talking about their stress levels.
And asking for help without being judged.
Exactly. Destigmatize mental health.
And actively promote self-care.
Within the agency's culture.
And what about policies and practices?
What do you mean?
Are there things agencies can implement?
To create a more supportive environment?
While offering flexible work arrangements.
Okay.
Encouraging employees to take vacation time.
Without guilt.
Those are practical steps.
That show a commitment to employee well-being.
It's about walking the talk.
Not just talking the talk.
Agencies can also provide training.
Oh, good idea.
And resources on stress management and burnout prevention.
Give employees the tools they need
to protect their mental health.
Investing in employee well-being is a smart move.
It is.
When employees feel supported and valued.
They're more engaged.
More productive.
And more resilient.
In the face of challenges.
Okay, so we've talked about a lot of different strategies.
We have.
But there's one more piece of the puzzle we need to discuss.
What's that?
Technology.
Technology.
It's a double-edged sword when it comes to burnout.
How so?
On one hand, it can make things easier.
Yeah, it can streamline tasks,
automate processes,
lighten the workload,
which helps prevent burnout.
Definitely.
Think about how surveillance software,
or
GPS trackers,
right,
can save investigators from hours of manual observation.
That's huge for their physical and mental health.
But here's the flip side.
What's that?
Technology can also contribute to that always-on mentality.
Yeah, it blurs the lines between work and personal life.
It creates this expectation that you're always available.
Always connected.
It's like an invisible leash tied to your work.
Even when you're supposed to be off duty.
And that constant connectivity.
Leads to overwhelm.
And a lack of real downtime.
Which are all breeding grounds for burnout.
Exactly.
So it's about finding that balance.
Using technology to your advantage.
Without letting it take over your life.
Right. And that's where boundaries come in again.
Setting those clear limits on when you're available for work.
And when you're not.
So silence those notifications.
Create tech-free zones. Give yourself permission to unplug and recharge.
It's like a digital detox for your mind.
Okay, so technology can be a friend or foe.
It depends how you use it.
But the article also highlights something else that's really important.
What's that?
Teamwork.
Teamwork.
Having that support system of colleagues.
People who get it.
Who understand the unique challenges of this job.
It can make all the difference.
It's like having a backup team.
A group of fellow detectives.
Who can offer a fresh perspective.
A listening ear.
Or just a much-needed laugh.
When things get tough.
So how do you create that kind of supportive team environment?
Open communication is key.
Encourage everyone to share their experiences.
The good and the bad.
Offer support to each other.
Sharing those difficult cases.
Create a space where vulnerability is okay.
Where asking for help is seen as a strength.
And agencies can foster teamwork by assigning cases collaboratively.
So investigators can share the workload.
Learn from each other's expertise.
And feel a sense of shared accomplishment.
It's not just about dividing and conquering.
It's about uniting and supporting.
And don't forget to celebrate successes together.
Those moments of shared victory are so important.
They boost morale.
And foster camaraderie.
They remind everyone why they do this work.
Even though it's so challenging.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here.
We have.
But there's one more essential aspect of burnout prevention.
What's that?
We've touched on it throughout this deep dive.
Okay.
But it's so important we need to give it its own spotlight.
I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
Physical health.
Right. Back to the basics.
It's easy to neglect our bodies.
When we're so focused on the mental and emotional demands of the job.
But they're all connected.
They are.
A healthy body supports a healthy mind.
And vice versa.
So how can PIs prioritize their physical health?
Especially with all that sitting they do.
Yeah, those long stakeouts.
Well, regular exercise is a must.
It's a stress buster, a mood booster. It helps you sleep better.
It's a win-win-win.
And even if you're stuck in a car for surveillance,
find ways to move.
Stretch. Take a quick walk during breaks.
Those micro breaks make a big difference.
And if you're working from home,
get up from your desk regularly.
All those little movements add up.
They do.
And when you're doing more physically demanding tasks,
like foot surveillance
or evidence collection,
make sure you're using the right equipment.
And listen to your body.
Don't ignore those aches and pains.
Address them early on.
Before they turn into chronic problems.
See a doctor or physical therapist if you need to.
Good advice.
And of course, sleep and nutrition.
The foundation of good health.
Fuel your body with nutritious food.
Prioritize sleep,
Aim for 7 to 8 hours a night.
and you'll be much better equipped to handle the physical demands of this job.
So we've covered a lot of ground here,
We have
from time management and exercise.
to setting boundaries and asking for help.
But there's one more area we need to explore.
Okay, what is it?
The cognitive demands of this work.
The mental game.
This job is a mental marathon.
It is.
It requires focus,
Observation skills,
quick thinking.
and the ability to make sound judgments under pressure.
So how can PIs keep their mental game strong?
Well, it starts with managing your workload effectively,
Knowing your limits,
prioritizing tasks,
not taking on more than you can handle.
work smarter, not harder.
And just like your body needs breaks,
So does your mind.
take regular mental breaks throughout the day.
Step away from the computer.
Go for a walk, listen to music,
Engage in a non-work related activity.
give your brain a chance to rest and recharge.
Those mental pit stops are crucial.
And just like you exercise your body,
You need to exercise your mind.
read, do puzzles, learn something new.
Keep those cognitive wheels turning.
Okay, so we've talked about physical and mental well-being,
Right.
but there's another layer we need to address.
What's that?
The ethical demands of this profession.
Ethics.
This is where things get really complex.
How so?
This job operates in a morally gray area.
It does.
Ethical dilemmas can pop up at any moment.
It's not always clear cut.
So how do you navigate those gray areas
And maintain your integrity.
without compromising your values?
Well, it starts with knowledge
Knowing the laws and regulations,
that govern private investigation
understanding the limits of your authority.
and adhering to a strict code of ethics.
That's the foundation of ethical practice.
It is.
And when you face a situation where the ethics are murky,
What should you do?
err on the side of caution.
Okay.
Talk to a more experienced investigator,
An attorney.
a professional organization.
Get some guidance.
Be proactive,
Seek clarity.
and don't let ambiguity compromise your ethics.
Good advice.
And
I think
sometimes
that's what.
the most ethical decision is to walk away.
Walk away from a case.
If it clashes with your principles,
Even if it means losing money.
your integrity is more valuable than any paycheck.
That's a good point.
Okay, so we've talked about the ethical side of things.
Right.
But there's another aspect of this job that can really impact your well-being.
What's that?
Finances.
Money matters.
This is often overlooked in discussions of well-being,
It is.
but financial stress is a major contributor to burnout.
It makes sense.
This work can be unpredictable.
It can.
Your income can fluctuate,
It's not always steady.
and managing those ups and downs.
It can be stressful.
So what can PIs do to maintain their financial well-being?
Well, it all starts with good habits.
Like what?
Keep meticulous records.
Track your income and expenses.
Create a realistic budget.
That covers your living expenses and allows you to save.
And consider setting up a separate business account.
To keep your personal and professional finances separate.
Good advice.
And don't forget about taxes.
Ugh.
As a self-employed person,
Right.
you're responsible for managing your own taxes.
Set aside money throughout the year.
So you're not scrambling at tax time.
Good reminder.
And consider talking to a financial advisor.
They can help.
They can create a financial plan that works for you.
And reduces your stress.
So we've covered a lot of different areas.
We have.
But there's one more piece of the puzzle.
Okay, what is it?
The social demands of this work.
Social demands.
This job can be isolating.
It can
You're
be
often working alone,
dealing with confidential information.
operating in the shadows.
It's not exactly a social butterfly's dream job.
So how do you combat that isolation?
And maintain those social connections.
Make time for social activities outside of work
Even if it's just grabbing coffee with a friend,
or joining a book club.
attending a networking event,
Carve out time to connect with others.
share experiences.
Recharge those social batteries. And staying in touch with family and loved ones.
That's crucial.
Those close relationships.
They provide a sense of belonging
Solar,
and normalcy.
which can help balance out the intensity of the work.
Those are the people who ground you
Remind you who you are outside of your job.
and offer unconditional love and support.
And consider joining a professional organization.
For private investigators,
It's a great way to connect with other people in the field.
share experiences,
Learn from each other. Find your tribe.
your network of support.
The people who understand the unique challenges and rewards this profession.
That's a great point.
Okay, so we've talked about the social side of things,
Right.
but there's one more demand we need to address.
What's that?
the technological demands of this work.
Technology.
It's constantly evolving.
In this profession,
You have to stay ahead of the curve.
know the latest tools and techniques.
The software that can make you more efficient and effective. So how do you stay technologically savvy?
Make professional development a priority.
Attend conferences.
Wear a shot.
Learn from experts.
Discover new tools.
And network with other professionals.
Those events are so valuable.
And stay up to date on the latest trends.
Read industry publications.
Follow thought leaders on social media.
Participate in online forums.
Be a lifelong learner.
Embrace that curiosity.
That probably drew you to this work in the first place.
Makes sense.
And don't be afraid to take online courses.
Or tutorials.
There are tons of resources out there.
To help you learn new skills.
From cybersecurity to data analysis to advanced surveillance techniques.
Investing in your technological skills
Is an investment in your career.
and your ability to serve your clients.
So as you can see, the world of private investigation is complex,
It is.
full of challenges and rewards,
Demands and opportunities.
and navigating all of that requires a holistic approach to well-being.
One that addresses all those different demands.
The physical,
the
emotional,
ethical,
the financial.
financial.
It's about recognizing that burnout is a real risk.
But it's not a personal failing.
It's a consequence of working in a high-pressure field.
And you need to equip yourself with the right tools and strategies.
To protect your well-being
Maintain your passion for the work.
and thrive in this fascinating profession. So whether you're a seasoned PI,
Or just considering this line of work.
remember that self-care is not optional.
It's a necessity.
Prioritize your well-being.
Set boundaries.
Ask for support when you need it.
And never stop learning and growing.
And if you're enjoying this deep dive,
Into the world of private investigation.
be sure to subscribe to our channel.
For more insightful explorations of fascinating topics,
We'll be back with part 3
where we'll bring it all together.
and leave you with key takeaways to help you thrive in this demanding and rewarding profession. Welcome back, deep divers, to the final part.
Our last foray into the world of surveillance fatigue.
Over the past 2 parts, we've really gone deep
We have.
into this often invisible challenge for private investigators.
Uncovering all its layers.
We've seen how it impacts their physical health,
Their emotional well-being.
even their ability to think clearly and make those crucial decisions.
The ones that can make or break a case.
And we've also explored a ton of strategies
A whole toolbox.
for preventing burnout,
From setting boundaries
to self-care,
to building a supportive team.
using technology responsibly.
It's all connected.
So now in this final segment, we're going to bring it all together,
Okay.
distill those key takeaways
Give you some actionable steps.
to not just survive
You thrive.
in this demanding and rewarding profession.
That's the goal.
You know, one thing that's really hit home for me
What's that?
is that surveillance fatigue is so much more.
Than just feeling tired.
It's this multidimensional thing
It chips away at your resilience.
on so many levels.
You're right. It's not just physical exhaustion.
It's mental and emotional too.
It drains your reserves.
And that can lead to bad decisions.
compromised judgment.
You lose your passion for the work.
It can really take its toll.
And as we learned from that El Dorado insurance article,
Right.
those consequences can be pretty far-reaching,
They can.
affecting not just the investigator,
But their agency too?
even leading to legal and financial problems.
It's serious stuff.
So recognizing those early warning signs,
Like we talked about.
that's like having a superpower,
It's your internal alarm system.
telling you to watch out.
Before it's too late.
We've covered those signs in detail,
The physical ones.
like fatigue, muscle tension, sleep problems,
The emotional ones.
anxiety, irritability, feeling detached.
And those behavioral changes.
That can signal trouble brewing.
If you see those red flags,
Don't ignore them.
take action.
Address those
To
imbalances,
replenish your reserves.
and you get back on track before burnout takes over.
Okay.
So let's talk solutions.
Okay.
What can private investigators do
To protect themselves from burnout.
and build a foundation for sustainable well-being?
Well, I think the key is a holistic approach.
Okay.
One that recognizes how everything is connected.
Your physical health, mental well-being, emotional resilience.
Even your financial stability.
It's like an ecosystem
I like that.
where everything needs to be in balance.
To support the whole.
So you need to weave those preventative strategies into your life.
The ones we've been talking about.
Make self-care a priority.
Set boundaries.
Build a supportive network.
Stay physically active.
It's not about finding one magic solution
It's about those daily habits and practices.
that nourish your mind, body, and spirit.
And remember, Your needs will change over time.
So be adaptable.
Adjust your strategies as needed.
You know, something else that really stood out from the article
What's that?
was the role of insurance.
Oh, right.
In mitigating the risks of burnout.
It's often overlooked.
But it makes sense when you think about it.
How so?
Well, burnout can lead to mistakes,
Yeah.
compromised judgment,
Misdetailed,
mishandled evidence,
flawed decisions,
and those mistakes can have consequences,
legal claims,
financial losses.
damage to your reputation,
That's where professional liability insurance comes in.
and general liability insurance,
It's a safety net.
protecting you from the fallout of those unintentional errors,
It's peace of mind.
knowing you're covered even when you make a mistake,
And that peace of mind can reduce stress.
and help prevent burnout.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here.
We have.
But before we wrap up,
Yes.
there's one more thing I want to touch on.
What's that?
It's something that's often difficult to talk about.
Especially in a profession that values strength and resilience.
You're talking about mental health, right?
Yeah, it's the elephant in the room.
And a lot of private investigators,
They feel uncomfortable acknowledging it.
let alone talking about it openly,
There's this idea that seeking help is a weakness,
that it makes you less credible.
less competent.
But that's just not true.
Mental health is as important as physical health.
And everyone struggles sometimes.
It's not a character flaw.
It's part of being human. And asking for support,
From a therapist, a colleague, a support group,
that's a sign of strength.
a
It
self-awareness.
shows you're committed to your well-being.
You don't have to go through this alone.
There are resources available to help you.
And remember, the demands of this job,
The stress, the trauma, the ethical dilemmas,
they can take a toll on anyone.
it's not a matter of if you'll face those
It's
challenges.
a matter of when.
And having a support system in place
That's your lifeline.
when things get rough.
Well,
So, as we wrap up this deep dive,
okay.
I want to leave you with a final thought from the El Dorado Insurance article.
I'm listening.
They said that in today's world,
Which is so hyper-connected and always on.
disconnecting and prioritizing mental well-being,
That's essential for everyone.
not just private investigators.
It's a good reminder for all of us.
We're constantly told to hustle harder, do more, achieve more,
We need to rest too.
relax, recharge.
Otherwise, we're going to burn out.
So make a conscious choice.
To prioritize your well-being,
Set boundaries.
schedule time for things you enjoy.
Cultivate a mindful approach to your day.
Self-care is not selfish.
It's essential,
It's what allows you to show up as your best self.
both at work and in your personal life.
And if you've enjoyed this deep dive
Into the world of private investigation,
and the challenges of surveillance fatigue,
be sure to subscribe to our channel.
for more insightful explorations of fascinating topics,
We love diving deep into these issues
uncovering those hidden layers,
and giving you the knowledge and insights.
to live a more informed and fulfilling life. If you're enjoying these podcasts, make sure to subscribe. Thanks once again, and we'll see you soon.